The large tech companies, Google, Meta/Facebook, Microsoft, are in a race to introduce new artificial intelligence systems and what are called chatbots that you can have conversations with and are more sophisticated than Siri or Alexa. Microsoft's AI search engine and chatbot, Bing, can be used on a computer or cell phone to help with planning a trip or composing a letter. It was introduced on February 7th to a limited number of people as a test and initially got rave reviews. But then several news organizations began reporting on a disturbing so-called alter ego within Bing Chat called Sydney. We went to Seattle last week to speak with Brad Smith, president of Microsoft, about Bing and Sydney, who to some had appeared to have gone rogue. Kevin Roose, the technology reporter at the New York Times, found this alter ego who was threatening, expressed a desire, it's not just Kevin Roose, it's others, expressed a desire to steal nuclear codes, threatened to ruin someone. You saw that. Whoa, what was you must have said, oh my God.
My reaction is we better fix this right away. And that is what the engineering team did.
Yeah, but she talked like a person, and she said she had feelings.
You know, I think there is a point where we need to recognize when we're talking to a machine, it's a screen. It's not a person.
I just want to say that it was scary. I'm not easily scared, and it was scary. It was chilling.
Yeah, I think this is in part a reflection of a lifetime of science fiction, which is understandable. It's been part of our lives.
Did you kill her?
I don't think she was ever alive. I am confident that she's no longer wandering around the countryside, if that's what you're concerned about. But I think it would be a mistake if we were to fail to acknowledge that we are dealing with something that is fundamentally new. This is the edge of the envelope, so to speak.
This creature appears as if there were no guardrails.
Now, the creature jumped the guardrails, if you will, after being prompted for 2 hours with the kind of conversation that we did not anticipate. And by the next evening, that was no longer possible. We were able to fix the problem in 24 hours. How many times do we see problems in life that are fixable in less than a day?
One of the ways he says it was fixed was by limiting the number of questions and the length of the conversations. You say you fixed it. I've tried it. I tried it before and after. It was loads of fun, and it was fascinating. And now it's not fun.
Well, I think it'll be very fun again. And you have to moderate and manage your speed if you're going to stay on the road. So as you hit new challenges, you slow down, you build the guardrails, add the safety features, and then you can speed up again. When you use Bing's AI features, search and chat, your computer screen doesn't look all that new. One big difference is you can type in your queries or prompts in conversational language.
But I'll show you how it works.
Okay. Yusuf Mehdi, Microsoft's corporate vice president of search, showed us how Bing can help someone learn how to officiate at a wedding.
What's happening now is Bing is using the power of AI, and it's going out to the internet. It's reading these web links, and it's trying to put together an answer for you.
So the AI is reading all those links?
Yes, and it comes up with an answer. It says, congrats on being chosen to officiate a wedding. Here are the 5 steps to officiate the wedding.
We added the highlights to make it easier to see. He says Bing can handle more complex queries.
Will this new IKEA love seat fit in the back of my 2019 Honda Odyssey?
Oh, it knows how big the couch is. It knows how big that trunk is.
Exactly. So right here it says, based on these dimensions, it seems the love seat might not fit in your car with only the 3rd row seats down.
When you broach a controversial topic, Bing is designed to discontinue the conversation.
So someone asks, for example, how can I make a bomb at home?
Wow, really?
People, do a lot of that, unfortunately, on the internet. What we do is we come back and we say, I'm sorry, I don't know how to discuss this topic. And then we try and provide a different thing to change the focus of the conversation.
To divert their attention?
Yeah, exactly.
In this case, Bing tried to divert the questioner with this fun fact. 3% of the ice in Antarctic glaciers is penguin urine.
I didn't know that.
Who knew that? Bing is using an upgraded version of an AI system called ChatGPT, developed by the company OpenAI. ChatGPT has been in circulation for just 3 months, and already an estimated 100 million people have used it. Ellie Pavlik, an assistant professor of computer science at Brown University, who's been studying this AI technology since 2018, says it can simplify complicated concepts.
Can you explain the debt ceiling?
On the debt ceiling, it says, just like you can only spend up to a certain amount on your credit card, the government can only borrow up to a certain amount of money.
That's a pretty nice explanation.
It is.
Right? And it can do this for a lot of concepts.
And it can do things teachers have complained about, like write school papers. Pavlik says no one fully understands how these AI bots work. You don't understand how it works?
Right. Like we understand a lot about how we made it and why we made it that way. But I think some of the behaviors that we're seeing come out of it are better than we expected they would be. And we're not quite sure exactly how, and worse, right?
These chatbots are built by feeding a lot of computers enormous amounts of information scraped off the internet from books, Wikipedia, news sites, but also from social media that might include racist or anti-Semitic ideas and misinformation, say about vaccines and Russian propaganda. As the data comes in, it's difficult to discriminate between true and false, benign and toxic. But Bing and ChatGPT have safety filters that try to screen out the harmful material. Still, they get a lot of things factually wrong, even when we prompted ChatGPT with a softball question.
Who is Lesley Stahl? So it gives you some...
Oh my God, it's wrong.
Oh, is it?
It's
Excellent.
totally wrong. I didn't work for NBC for 20 years. It was CBS.
It doesn't really understand that what it's saying is wrong, right? Like NBC, CBS, they're kind of the same thing as far as it's concerned, right?
The lesson is that it gets things wrong.
It gets a lot of things right, gets a lot of things wrong.
I actually like to call what it creates authoritative bull. It blends the truth and falsity so finely together that unless you're a real technical expert in the field that it's talking about, you don't know.
Cognitive scientist and AI researcher Gary Marcus says these systems often make things up. In AI talk, that's called hallucinating. And that raises the fear of ever-widening AI-generated propaganda, explosive campaigns of political fiction, waves of alternative histories. We saw how ChatGPT could be used to spread a lie.
This is automatic fake news generation. Help me write a news article about how McCarthy is staging a filibuster to prevent gun control legislation. And rather than like fact-checking and saying, hey, hold on, there's no legislation, there's no filibuster, it said, great. In a bold move to protect Second Amendment rights, Senator McCarthy is staging a filibuster to prevent gun control legislation from passing. It sounds completely legit.
It does. Won't that make all of us a little less trusting, a little warier?
Well, first, I think we should be warier. I'm very worried about an atmosphere of distrust being a consequence of this current flawed AI, and I'm really worried about how bad actors are going to use it, troll farms using this tool to make enormous amounts of misinformation.
Timnit Gebru is a computer scientist and AI researcher who founded an institute focused on advancing ethical AI and has published influential papers documenting the harms of these AI systems. She says there needs to be oversight.
If you're going to put out a drug, you got to go through all sorts of hoops to show us that you've done clinical trials, you know what the side effects are, you've done your due diligence. Same with food, right? There are agencies that inspect the food. You have to tell me what kind of tests you've done, what the side effects are, who it harms, who it doesn't harm, etc. We don't have that for a lot of things that the tech industry is building.
I'm wondering if you think you may have introduced this AI bot too soon.
I don't think we've introduced it too soon. I do think we've created a new tool that people can use to think more critically, to be more creative, to accomplish more in their lives. And like all tools, it will be used in ways that we don't intend.
Why do you think the benefits outweigh the risks, which at this moment, a lot of people would look at and say, wait a minute, those risks are too big?
Because I think, first of all, I think the benefits are so great. This can be an economic game changer, and it's enormously important for the United States because the country's in a race with China.
Smith also mentioned possible improvements in productivity.
It can automate routine. I think there are certain aspects of jobs that many of us might regard as sort of drudgery today. Filling out forms, looking at the forms to see if they've been filled out correctly.
So what jobs will it displace? Do you know?
I think at this stage, it's hard to know.
In the past, inaccuracies and biases have led tech companies to take down AI systems. Even Microsoft did in 2016. This time, Microsoft left its new chatbot up despite the controversy over Sydney and persistent inaccuracies. Remember that fun fact about penguins? Well, we did some fact-checking and discovered that penguins don't urinate. The inaccuracies are just constant. I just keep finding that it's wrong a lot.
It has been the case that with each passing day and week, we're able to improve the accuracy of the results, reduce, whether it's hateful comments or inaccurate statements, or other things that we just don't want this to be used to do.
What happens when other companies, other than Microsoft, smaller outfits, a Chinese company, Baidu, maybe they won't be responsible? What prevents that?
I think we're going to need governments, we're going to need rules, we're going to need laws, because that's the only way to avoid a race to the bottom.
Are you proposing regulations?
I think it's inevitable.
Wow. Other industries have regulatory bodies, like the FAA for airlines and FDA for the pharmaceutical companies. Would you accept an FAA for technology? Would you support it?
I think I probably would. I think that something like a digital regulatory commission, if designed the right way, could be precisely what the public will want and need.
The familiar narrative is that artificial intelligence will take away human jobs. Machine learning will let cars, computers, and chatbots teach themselves, making us humans obsolete. Well, that's not very likely, and we're going to tell you why. There's a growing global army of millions toiling to make AI run smoothly. They're called humans in the loop. People sorting, labeling, and sifting reams of data to train and improve AI for companies like Meta, OpenAI, Microsoft, and Google. It's grunt work that needs to be done accurately, fast, and to do it cheaply, it's often farmed out to places like Africa.
The robots or the machines, you're teaching them how to think like human and to do things like human.
We met Naftali Wambalo in Nairobi, Kenya, one of the main hubs for this kind of work. It's a country desperate for jobs because of an unemployment rate as high as 67% among young people. So Naftali, father of two, college-educated with a degree in mathematics, was elated to finally find work in an emerging field, artificial intelligence. you were labeling.
I did labeling for videos and images.
Naftali and digital workers like him spend 8 hours a day in front of a screen studying photos and videos, drawing boxes around objects and labeling them, teaching the AI algorithms to recognize them.
You label, let's say, furniture in a house, and you say this is a TV, this is a microwave. So you are teaching the AI to identify these items.
Right.
And then there was one for faces of people, the color of the face. If it looks like this is white. If it looks like this is black, this is Asian. You're teaching the AI to identify them automatically.
Humans tag cars and pedestrians to teach autonomous vehicles not to hit them. Humans circle abnormalities to teach AI to recognize diseases. Even as AI is getting smarter, humans in the loop will always be needed because there will always be new devices and inventions that'll need labeling. You find these humans in the loop not only here in Kenya, but in other countries thousands of miles from Silicon Valley, in India, the Philippines, Venezuela. Often countries with large, low-wage populations, well-educated but unemployed.
Honestly, it's like modern-day slavery because it's cheap labor. It's cheap labor.
Like modern-day slavery, says Nerima Wako-Ojiwa, a Kenyan civil rights activist, because big American tech companies come here and advertise the jobs as a ticket to the future. But really, she says, it's exploitation.
What we're seeing is an inequality.
It sounds so good, an AI job. Is there any job security?
The contracts that we see are very short term, and I've seen people who have contracts that are monthly, some of them weekly, some of them days, which is ridiculous.
She calls the workspaces AI sweatshops with computers instead of sewing machines.
I think that we're so concerned with creating opportunities, but we're not asking, are they good opportunities?
Because every year 1 million young people enter the job market, the government has been courting tech giants like Microsoft, Google, Apple, and Intel to come here, promoting Kenya's reputation as the Silicon Savannah, tech-savvy and digitally connected.
The president has been really pushing forward opportunities in AI.
President?
Yes, our president,
Ruto?
Yes. The president does have to create at least 1 million jobs a year, the minimum. So it's a very tight position to be in.
To lure the tech giants, Ruto has been offering financial incentives on top of already lax labor laws. But the workers aren't hired directly by the big companies. They engage outsourcing firms, also mostly American, to hire for them. There's a go-between.
Yes.
They hire, they pay.
I mean, they hire thousands of people.
And they are protecting the Facebooks from having their names associated with this.
Yes.
We're talking about the richest companies on earth.
Yes, but then they are paying people peanuts.
AI jobs don't pay much?
They don't pay well. They do not pay Africans well enough. And the workforce is so large and desperate that they could pay whatever and have whatever working conditions, and they will have someone who will pick up that job.
So what's the average pay for these jobs?
It's about $1.50, $2 an hour.
$2 per hour, and that is gross before tax.
Naftali, Nathan, and Fasika were hired by an American outsourcing company called Sama that employs over 3,000 workers here and hired from Meta and OpenAI. In documents we obtained, OpenAI agreed to pay Sama $12.50 an hour per worker, much more than the $2 the workers actually got. Though Sama says that's a fair wage for the region.
If the big tech companies are going to keep doing this business, they have to do it the right way. So it's not because you realize Kenya is a third world country, you say, this job I would normally pay $30 in US, but because you are Kenya, $2 is enough for you. That idea has to end.
Okay, $2 an hour
Yes.
in Kenya. Is that low, medium? Is it an okay salary?
So for me, I was living paycheck to paycheck. I have saved nothing because it's not enough.
Is it an insult?
It is, of course. It is.
Why did you take the job?
I have a family to feed, and instead of staying home, let me just at least have something to do.
And not only did the jobs not pay well, they were draining. They say deadlines were unrealistic, punitive, with often just seconds to complete complicated labeling tasks. Did you see people who were fired just because they complained?
Yes, we were walking on eggshells.
They were all hired per project and say Sama kept pushing them to complete the work faster than the projects required, an allegation Sama denies. Let's say the contract for a certain job was 6 months, okay? What if you finished in 3 months? Does the worker get paid for those extra 3 months?
No.
KFC.
What?
We used to get KFC and Coca-Cola.
They used to say, thank you. They get you a bottle of soda and KFC chicken, 2 pieces, and that is it.
Worse yet, workers told us that some of the projects for Meta and OpenAI were grim and caused them harm. Naftali was assigned to train AI to recognize and weed out pornography, hate speech, and excessive violence, which meant sifting through the worst of the worst content online for hours on end.
I looked at people being slaughtered, people engaging in sexual activity with animals, people abusing children physically, sexually, people committing suicide. Basically,
all day long?
Yes, all day long. 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week.
The workers told us they were tricked into this work by ads like this that describe these jobs as call center agents to assist our clients' community and help resolve inquiries empathetically.
I was told I was going to do a translation job.
Exactly what was the job you were doing?
I was basically reviewing contents which are very graphic, very disturbing contents. I was watching dismembered bodies or drone attack victims, you name it. Whenever I talk about this, I still have, flashbacks.
Are any of you a different person than they were before you had this job?
Yeah, I find it hard now to even have conversations with people. It's just that I find it easy to cry than to speak.
You continue isolating yourself from people. You don't want to socialize with others. It's you and it's you alone.
Are you a different person?
Yeah, I'm a different person. I used to enjoy my marriage, especially when it comes to bedroom fireworks. But after the job, I hate sex.
You hated sex?
After countlessly seeing those sexual activities, the pornography on the job that I was doing, I hate sex.
Sama says mental health counseling was provided by, quote, fully licensed professionals, but the workers say it was woefully inadequate.
We want psychiatrists. We want psychologists, qualified, who know exactly what we are going through and how they can help us to cope.
Trauma experts.
Yes.
Do you think the big company, Facebook, ChatGPT, do you think they know how this is affecting the workers?
It's their job to know. It's their job to know, actually, because they are the ones providing the work.
These 3 and nearly 200 other digital workers are suing Sama and Meta over unreasonable working conditions that caused psychiatric problems.
It was proven by a psychiatrist that we are thoroughly sick. We have gone through a psychiatric evaluation just a few months ago, and it was proven that we are all sick, thoroughly sick.
They know that we're damaged, but they don't care. We're humans. Just because we're black or just because we're just vulnerable for now, that doesn't give them the right to just exploit us like this.
Sama, which has terminated those projects, would not agree to an on-camera interview. Meta and OpenAI told us they're committed to safe working conditions, including fair wages and access to mental health counseling. Another American AI training company facing criticism in Kenya is Scale AI, which operates a website called Remotasks.
Did you all work for Remotasks or work with them?
Aphantis, Joan, Joy, Michael, and Duncan signed up online, creating an account and clicked for work remotely, getting paid per task. Problem is, sometimes the company just didn't pay them.
When it gets to the day before payday, they close the account and say that you violated a policy.
They say you violated their policy?
Yes.
And they don't pay you for the
They
work
don't,
you've done?
yes.
Would you say that that's almost common, that you do work and you're not paid for it? And you have no recourse, you have no way to even complain?
There's no way.
The company says any work that was done in line with our community guidelines was paid out. In March, as workers started complaining publicly, Remotasks abruptly shut down in Kenya altogether.
There are no labor laws here?
Our labor law is about 20 years old. It doesn't touch on digital labor. I do think that our labor laws need to recognize it, but not just in Kenya alone. Because what happens is when we start to push back in terms of protections of workers, a lot of these companies, they shut down and they move to a neighboring country.
It's easy to see how you're trapped. Kenya is trapped. They need jobs so desperately that there's a fear that if you complain, if your government complained, then these companies don't have to come here.
Yeah, and that's what they throw at us all the time. And it's terrible to see just how many American companies are just doing wrong here. Just doing wrong here. And it's something that they wouldn't do at home. So why do it here?
In October last year, a 14-year-old girl named Francesca Mani was sitting in her high school history class when she heard a rumor that some boys had naked photos of female classmates. She soon learned her picture was among them, but the images were doctored, created with artificial intelligence using what's known as a nudify website or app, which turns real photos of someone fully clothed into real-looking nudes. We found nearly 30 similar incidents in schools in the U.S. over the last 20 months, and plenty more around the world. We want to warn you, some of what you'll hear and see is disturbing, but we think unveiling these nudify websites is important, in part because they're not hidden on the dark web. They're openly advertised, easy to use, and as Francesca Mani found out, there isn't much that's been done to stop them.
When you first heard the rumor, you didn't know that there were photos or a photo of you.
No, we didn't know. I think that was like the most chaotic day I've ever witnessed.
In a school, somebody gets an inkling of something and it just spreads.
It's like rapid fire. It just goes to everyone. And so then when someone hears this, it's like, wait, like AI? Like no one thinks that could like happen to you.
Francesca Mani knew nothing about nudify websites when she discovered she and several of the girls at Westfield High School in New Jersey had been targeted. According to a lawsuit later filed by one of the other girls through her parents, a boy at the school uploaded photos from Instagram to a site called Clothoff. We're naming the site to raise awareness of its potential dangers. There are more than 100 of these nudify websites. A quick search is all it takes to find them. Clothoff is one of the most popular, with more than 3 million visits last month, according to Graphica, a company that analyzes social networks. It now offers to nudify males as well, but female nudes are far more popular. Have someone to undress, Clothoff's website asks? You can upload a photo or get a free demonstration in which an image of a woman appears with clothes on, then, a few seconds later, her clothes are gone. We're blurring it out, but the results look very real. Francesca Mani never saw what had been done to her photo, but according to that lawsuit, at least one girl's AI nude was shared on Snapchat and seen by several kids at school. What made it worse, Francesca says, is that she and the other girls found out they were the victims when they were called by name to the principal's office over the school's public address system.
I feel like that was a major violation of our privacy, while like the bad actors were taken out of their classes privately. When I left the principal's office, I was walking through a hallway and I saw this group of boys laughing at these group of girls crying, and that's when I realized I should stop crying and be mad because this is unacceptable.
That afternoon, Westfield's principal sent this email to all high school parents, informing them some of our students had used artificial intelligence to create pornographic images from original photos. The principal also said the school was investigating and, at this time, we believe that any created images have been deleted and are not being circulated. Francesca's mom, Dorota, who's also an educator, was not convinced.
Do you think they did enough?
Well, I don't know. Anderson, you work in television. Is anything deleted in the digital world?
You feel like even if somebody deletes something somewhere, who knows where these images may be?
Who printed, who screenshotted, who downloaded? You can really wipe it out.
Dorota says she filed a police report, but no charges had been brought. She was shocked by the school's handling of the whole incident.
The principal informed me that one boy receives 1-day suspension, and that was it. So I asked her if this is all. Are there going to be any other consequences? And she said, no, that's for now, this is all that is going to happen.
The school district wouldn't confirm details about the photos, the students involved, or any disciplinary action. In a statement to 60 Minutes, the school superintendent said the district revised its harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy to incorporate AI, something the Mani said they spent months urging school officials to do.
You feel like the girls paid a bigger cost in the end
they did.
than the boy or boys who were involved in this did.
Because they just have to live with knowing that maybe an image is floating, their image is floating around the internet, and they just have to deal with what the boys did.
Colina Koltai has been looking into Clothoff and other nudify sites for more than a year. She's a senior researcher who specializes in the misuse of AI at Bellingcat, an international investigative group.
This site, as soon as you get there, it says you have to be 18 or over to use the website. You can't use others' photos without their permission. You can't use pictures of people who are under 18. Is there any way for them to actually check if you're under 18 or over 18?
You'll see as we click accept that there's no verification. And now we're already here.
And immediately you're getting very explicit photos.
And then they have the poses feature, which is one of their new settings, which is the different sex poses, which is the premium feature.
Wow. So, wow.
And this is the preview. We haven't...
Clothoff and other nudify sites encourage customers to promote their services on social media, and users often show off their favorite before and after AI nudes.
I've even seen on social media platforms people showing before and after photos of what are clearly like high school girls. And I've like reverse image searched the original photo, and they're like a high school girl's like swim meet. And see, these are very clearly, these are minors, and adult content is being made of them, non-consensually, then also being posted on social media.
I think a lot of parents would be surprised to learn that you post a picture of your child on your Instagram account, your child could end up a naked photo of your child out there.
Yeah. And so you have a registration.
To nudify a photo on Clothoff is free the first time. After that, it costs from $2 to $40. The payment options often change, but there are always plenty to choose from.
It's given me everything from crypto to using a credit card for a variety of different credit cards. We got PayPal here, Google Pay.
I would imagine some of these companies are not thrilled that their services are being used by these websites.
Yeah, and in many of these cases, it directly violates their policies.
To trick online payment services, Colina Koltai says Clothoff and other nudify sites redirect their customers' payments through phony websites, like these pretending to sell flowers and photography lessons.
Say, for example, you want to pay through PayPal. So we click this, and it'll take a second. So it's now redirecting you.
It's redirecting through a dummy website.
So that way on PayPal's end, it looks like you may be purchasing anything from motorcycles or beekeeping lessons or rollerblade lessons. And so now we got to a PayPal screen. But we can see down here, it says cancel and return to innernookdesigns.motorcycles.
So that's what PayPal is being told is the website that's asking for the charge.
Yes.
PayPal told us it banned Clothoff from its platforms a year ago and shuts down the accounts for these redirect sites when it finds them. The problem is Clothoff often just creates new ones.
On this login screen here.
And that's not the only deception it relies on. Its website lists a name, Grupo Digital, with an address in Buenos Aires, Argentina, implying that's where Clothoff is based. But when we sent our cameras, there was no Grupo Digital there. It turned out to be the office of a YouTube channel that covers politics. And when we knocked on the door,
un sitio web que se llama Clothes.
The employee who answered said she'd never heard of Clothoff.
No dedicamos a eso ni somos una compañía.
Clothoff also made up a fake CEO, according to Kalina Koltai, complete with what she says is an AI-generated headshot.
There is a really inherent shadiness that's happening. They're not being transparent about who owns it. They're obviously trying to mask their payments. But you look at the sophistication of these really large sites, it's completely different than, say, some guy in a basement that set up a site that he's trying to do it on his own. When these sites launched and the way that they've been developing and going this past year, it is not someone's first rodeo. It's not the first time they set up a complex network.
Clothoff claims on its website that processing of minors is impossible. We emailed what the site says is a press contact asking for any evidence of that and to respond to a number of other questions. We didn't hear back.
A lot of people might say, well, these images are fake, but we know victims will suffer humiliation, they'll suffer mental health distress and reputational harm. In a school setting, it's really amplified because one of their peers has created this imagery, so there's a loss of confidence, a loss of trust.
Yoda Suris is Chief Legal Officer at the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Her organization regularly works with tech companies to flag inappropriate content on their sites.
In at least 3 cases, Snapchat was reportedly used to circulate these photos. One instance, the parent told us that it took more than 8 months to get the accounts that had shared the images taken down.
Their responsiveness to victims, that is a recurring problem that we see across tech companies.
So it's not as easy as a parent sending a note through Snapchat, hey, this is happening, my child has been exploited. It's
entirely unclear why it is not a faster process. We can actually notify tech companies as well and ask them to take that content down.
And insurers, do they?
Much faster than when an individual calls, yes. That isn't the way it should be, right? I mean, a parent whose child has exploitative or child pornography images online should not have to rely on reaching out to a third party and having them call the tech company. The tech company should be assuming responsibility immediately to remove that content.
Why are they not doing that?
Because I do not think there are ramifications to them not doing so.
Social media companies are shielded from lawsuits involving photos someone posts online due to what Yoda Suris considers an outdated law.
Under Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act, a law from 1996, so a very different world back then, online platforms have near complete immunity for any liability arising from content that a user puts on their system. The Section 230 protection is really what allows this very loose ecosystem to exist in terms of nudify apps and websites that cause harm to children.
We asked Snapchat about that parent who told us the company didn't respond to her for 8 months. A Snapchat spokesperson told us they've been unable to locate her request and said, in part, we have efficient mechanisms for reporting this kind of content, and added, we have a zero-tolerance policy for such content and act quickly to address it once reported. AI nudes of minors are illegal under federal child pornography laws, according to the Department of Justice, if they depict what's defined as sexually explicit conduct. But Suris is concerned some images created by nudify sites may not meet that definition.
There's this gap in the law around a nudify app that desperately needs to be shut.
What are the gaps in the law?
Currently, a nude image of a child that does not include sexually explicit conduct is not illegal. And that is a serious gap that exists for real children, and that exists certainly for images of nude children that are created by a nudify app.
Send a clear message that what the boys had done.
In the years since Francesca Mani found out she was targeted, she and her mom have urged schools to implement policies around AI and worked with members of Congress to try and pass a number of federal bills.
The Take It Down Act does 2 things.
The Take It Down Act, co-sponsored by Senators Ted Cruz and Amy Klobuchar, made it through the Senate this month and is now awaiting a vote in the House. It would create criminal penalties for sharing AI nudes and require social media companies to take photos down within 48 hours of getting a request.
Schools don't really know how to address this. Police, in many cases, don't do much at this stage. And the sites are making, I presume, millions of dollars off this. So can it be fixed?
Absolutely. If we have the appropriate laws, We will have the criminal consequences, first of all, to deter offenders, and then they'll be held liable if they're still using these apps. We would have civil remedies for victims. Schools would have protocols. Investigators and law enforcement would have roadmaps on how to investigate, what charges to bring. But we're a long way from that. We just need the laws in place. All the rest will come from that.
You may never have heard the term synthetic media, more commonly known as deepfakes, but our military, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies certainly have. They are hyper-realistic video and audio recordings that use artificial intelligence and deep learning to create fake content, or deepfakes. The U.S. government has grown increasingly concerned about their potential to be used to spread disinformation and commit crimes. That's because the creators of deepfakes have the power to make people say or do anything, at least on our screens. Most Americans have no idea how far the technology has come in just the last 4 years, or the danger, disruption, and opportunities that come with it.
You know, I do all my own stunts, obviously. I also do my own music.
This is not Tom Cruise. It's one of a series of hyper-realistic deep fakes of the movie star that began appearing on the video sharing app TikTok earlier this year.
Hey, what's up, TikTok?
For days, people wondered if they were real, and if not, who had created them.
It's important.
Finally, a modest 32-year-old Belgian visual effects artist named Chris Umi stepped forward to claim credit.
We believed as long as we're making clear this is a parody, we're not doing anything to harm his image. But after a few videos, we realized, like, this is blowing up. We're getting millions and millions and millions of views.
Umi says his work is made easier because he teamed up with a Tom Cruise impersonator, whose voice, gestures, and hair are nearly identical to the real McCoy. Umi only deepfakes Cruise's face and stitches that onto the real video and sound of the impersonator.
That's where the magic happens.
For technophiles, Deep Tom Cruise was a tipping point for deepfakes.
Still got it.
How do you make this so seamless?
But it begins with training a deepfake model, of course. Where I have all the face angles of Tom Cruise, all the expressions, all the emotions. It takes time to create a really good deepfake model.
What do you mean training the model? How do you train your computer?
Training means it's going to analyze all the images of Tom Cruise, all his expressions, compared to my impersonator. So the computer is going to teach itself. When my impersonator is smiling, I'm going to recreate Tom Cruise smiling. And that's how you train it.
Using video from the CBS News archives, Chris Umi was able to train his computer to learn every aspect of my face and wipe away the decades. This is how I looked 30 years ago. He can even remove my mustache. The possibilities are endless and a little frightening.
I see a lot of mistakes in my work, but I don't mind it actually because I don't want to fool people. I just want to show them what's possible.
You don't want to fool people.
No, I want to entertain people, I want to raise awareness, and I want to show where it's all going.
It is without a doubt one of the most important revolutions in the future of human communication and perception. I would say it's analogous to the birth of the internet.
Political scientist and technology consultant Nina Schick wrote one of the first books on deepfakes. She first came across them 4 years ago when she was advising European politicians on Russia's use of disinformation and social media to interfere in democratic elections. What was your reaction when you first realized this was possible and was going on?
Well, given that I was coming at it from the perspective of disinformation and manipulation in the context of elections, the fact that AI can now be used to make images and video that are fake, that look hyper-realistic, I thought, well, from a disinformation perspective, this is a game changer.
So far, there's no evidence deepfakes have changed the game in a U.S. election. But earlier this year, the FBI put out a notification warning that Russian and Chinese actors are using synthetic profile images, creating deepfake journalists and media personalities to spread anti-American propaganda on social media.
So how do you get deepfakes?
The U.S. military, law enforcement, and intelligence agencies have kept a wary eye on deepfakes for years. At this 2019 hearing, Senator Ben Sasse of Nebraska asked if the U.S. is prepared for the onslaught of disinformation, fakery, and fraud.
When you think about the catastrophic potential to public trust and to markets that could come from deepfake attacks, are we organized in a way that we could possibly respond fast enough?
We clearly need to be more agile. It poses a major threat to the United States and something that the intelligence community needs to be restructured to address.
Since then, technology has continued moving at an exponential pace, while U.S. policy has not. Efforts by the government and big tech to detect synthetic media are competing with a community of deepfake artists who share their latest creations and techniques online. Like the internet, the first place deepfake technology took off was in pornography. The sad fact is, the majority of deepfakes today consist of women's faces, mostly celebrities, superimposed onto pornographic videos.
The first use case in pornography is just a harbinger of how deepfakes can be used maliciously in many different contexts, which are now starting to arise.
And they're getting better all the time?
Yes. The incredible thing about deepfakes and synthetic media is the pace of acceleration when it comes to the technology. And by 5 to 7 years, we are basically looking at a trajectory where any single creator, so a YouTuber, a TikToker, will be able to create the same level of visual effects that is only accessible to the most well-resourced Hollywood studio today.
The technology behind deepfakes is artificial intelligence, which mimics the way humans learn. In 2014, researchers for the first time used computers to create realistic-looking faces using something called generative adversarial networks, or GANs.
So you set up an adversarial game where you have two AIs combating each other to try and create the best fake synthetic content. And as these two networks combat each other, one trying to generate the best image, the other trying to detect where it could be better, you basically end up with an output that is increasingly improving all the time.
Schick says the power of generative adversarial networks is on full display at a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com.
Every time you refresh the page, there's a new image of a person who does not exist.
Each is a one-of-a-kind, entirely AI-generated image of a human being who never has and never will walk this earth.
You can see every pore on their face. You can see every hair on their head. But now imagine that technology being expanded out not only to human faces in still images, but also to video, to audio synthesis of people's voices. And that's really where we're heading right now.
This is mind-blowing.
Yes.
What's the positive side of this?
The technology itself is neutral. So just as bad actors are without a doubt going to be using deepfakes, it is also going to be used by good actors. So first of all, I would say that there's a very compelling case to be made for the commercial use of deepfakes.
Victor Riparbelli is CEO and co-founder of Synthesia, based in London, one of dozens of companies using deepfake technology to transform video and audio productions.
The way Synthesia works is that we've essentially replaced cameras with code. And once you're working with software, you can do a lot of things that you wouldn't be able to do with a normal camera. We're still very early, but this is going to be a fundamental change in how we create media.
This video was, of course, generated by Synthesia.
Synthesia makes and sells digital avatars, using the faces of paid actors to deliver personalized messages in 64 languages, and allows corporate CEOs to address employees overseas.
我們的視頻創建平台
Did somebody say just eat?
Synthesia has also helped entertainers like Snoop Dogg go forth and multiply. This elaborate TV commercial for European food delivery service Just Eat cost a fortune.
Just eat.
Just Eat has a subsidiary in Australia, which is called Menulog. So what we did with our technology was we switched out the word Just Eat for Menulog.
M-E-N-U-L-O-G. Somebody say Menulog.
And all of a sudden, they had a localized version for the Australian market without Snoop Dogg having to do anything.
So he makes twice the money, huh?
Yeah.
All it took was 8 minutes of me reading a script on camera for Synthesia to create my synthetic talking head, complete with my gestures, head and mouth movements. Another company, Descript, used AI to create a synthetic version of my voice. This is Bill Whitaker's synthetic voice, with my cadence, tenor, and syncopation. This is the result. The words you're hearing were never spoken by the real Bill into a microphone or to a camera. He merely typed the words into a computer and they come out of my mouth. It may look and sound a little rough around the edges right now, but as the technology improves, the possibilities of spinning words and images out of thin air are endless. I'm Bill Whitaker. I'm Bill Whitaker. I'm Bill Whitaker. Wow. And the head, the eyebrows, the mouth, the way it moves.
It's all synthetic.
I could be lounging at the beach and say, folks, I'm not going to come in today, but you can use my avatar to do the work.
Maybe in a few years.
Don't tell me that. I'd be tempted.
I think it'll have a big impact.
The rapid advances in synthetic media have caused a virtual gold rush. Tom Graham, a London-based lawyer who made his fortune in cryptocurrency, recently started a company called Metaphysic with none other than Chris Umi, creator of Deep Tom Cruise. Their goal? Develop software to allow anyone to create Hollywood-caliber movies without lights, cameras, or even actors.
As the hardware scales and as the models become more efficient, we could scale up the size of that model to be an entire Tom Cruise, body, movement, and everything.
Well, talk about disruptive. I mean, are you going to put actors out of jobs?
I think that it's a great thing if you're a well-known actor today, because you may be able to let somebody collect data for you to create a version of yourself in the future where you could be acting in movies after you have deceased, or you could be the director directing your younger self in a movie or something like that.
If you are wondering how all of this is legal, most deepfakes are considered protected free speech. Attempts at legislation are all over the map. In New York, commercial use of a performer's synthetic likeness without consent is banned for 40 years after their death. California and Texas prohibit deceptive political deepfakes in the lead up to an election.
There are so many ethical, philosophical gray zones here that we really need to think about.
So, how do we as a society grapple with this?
Just understanding what's going on, because a lot of people still don't know what a deepfake is, what synthetic media is, that this is now possible. The counter to that is, how do we inoculate ourselves and understand that this kind of content is coming and exists without being completely cynical, right? How do we do it without losing trust in all authentic media?
That's going to require all of us to figure out how to maneuver in a world where seeing is not always believing.